In the autumn of 1944, the island of Peleliu looked like nothing more than a jagged coral speck in the Pacific. 8 square miles of rock and jungle no tourist would ever think to visit. But beneath that coral surface, Japan had built one of the most formidable fortresses of the Second World War. When US Marines landed there, they were told it would take 3 days to capture the island. It took more than 2 months. What they found inside was a new kind of war, one fought not above ground, but beneath it. This is the story of Peleliu, the fortress that wasn't supposed to fall, and the defenders who turned a tropical island into a tomb. By mid-1944, Japan was losing the Pacific step by step. The Marianas were gone, Saipan had fallen, and B-29 bombers now had a path toward the Japanese homeland. But the Imperial General Staff believed one thing still stood between America and total victory: the Palau Islands, and at their center, Peleliu. On maps, it was small. In reality, it was priceless. Its airfield could threaten US operations in the Philippines and disrupt the coming invasion of Leyte. For Japan, Peleliu became a symbol. Hold this island, and perhaps slow the inevitable. For America, it was a stepping stone that needed to be cleared. Fast. Neither side realized what they were walking into. At first glance, Peleliu didn't look defensible. It was ringed by reefs, covered in thick jungle, and dominated by a coral ridge that cut across the island like a scar. But Japan's engineers saw potential in the rock itself. Under the command of Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, thousands of soldiers and laborers spent months carving an underground network unlike anything built before. They dug more than 500 caves, tunnels, and bunkers, all interconnected, ventilated, and reinforced with steel and concrete. Artillery pieces were hidden behind sliding doors. Machine gun nests were concealed inside natural caverns. Observation posts were linked by crawl tunnels only wide enough for one man to pass. It was no longer a battlefield. It was a maze. And Nakagawa's plan was simple. Let the enemy come to you, then bleed them dry. Until Peleliu, Japan's island defenses had followed the same playbook: meet the enemy on the beaches, charge when overrun, die with honor. But those tactics had failed at Tarawa and Saipan. Nakagawa rewrote the rules. There would be no mass suicide attacks, no futile countercharges. Instead, his troops would dig deep, wait in silence, and strike from underground. He called it defense in depth. And it would become Japan's new doctrine for the rest of the Pacific War. When the American invasion fleet appeared on September 15, 1944, Peleliu was already trembling from naval bombardment. For 3 days, battleships and cruisers fired more than 500,000 shells into the island. The jungle burned, coral shattered, and smoke covered the horizon. Admirals believed nothing could survive such destruction. But deep inside their tunnels, Nakagawa's soldiers waited, untouched, listening to the shelling like distant thunder. When the bombardment stopped, they climbed to their positions, loaded their weapons, and prepared for what was coming. At 8:32 a.m., the first wave of US Marines landed on White Beach. Within minutes, the plan unraveled. The beach was a trap. Hidden artillery zeroed in on the landing craft. Mortars fell like rain. Flamethrower tanks bogged down in coral ridges, while snipers picked off engineers trying to clear obstacles. In less than an hour, the 1st Battalions suffered more than 1,500 casualties. Yet the Marines kept pushing forward, clawing their way toward the airfield, a barren plain of crushed coral that reflected the sun like a mirror. Temperatures on the ground reached 115 degrees. Canteens ran dry before noon. The island itself seemed determined to kill anyone who set foot on it. The fight for the airfield was brutal and confusing. There was no cover, just open ground and machine gun fire from the ridges beyond. When the Marines finally captured it on the second day, they discovered it was only the beginning. Beyond the runway rose the Umurbrogel Mountains, a labyrinth of jagged coral spires and cliffs that the troops nicknamed Bloody Nose Ridge. It was here that Japan's underground fortress truly revealed itself. Every cave concealed crossfire. Every ridge hid an ambush. Marines advanced yard by yard, throwing grenades into holes, then hearing fire erupt behind them from tunnels they didn't know existed. The enemy seemed to move through the rock itself. For Nakagawa's men, the new defense strategy was working. From their cool, ventilated tunnels, they could withstand bombardment, conserve ammunition, and inflict maximum casualties. But there was a cost. The same tunnels that protected them also trapped them. Once sealed by explosions or collapses, escape was impossible. Supplies dwindled, communications broke down, and thirst became a weapon deadlier than bullets. Still, orders were clear: hold until the last man. Above ground, the U.S. command underestimated what they faced. General William Rupertus predicted the island would fall in 72 hours. By the end of the first week, it was clear he had been wrong. The 1st Marine Division, veterans of Guadalcanal and Cape Gloucester, called Peleliu the toughest fight of their lives. Every advance required days of coordinated assaults using tanks, flamethrowers, and demolitions. Even when a cave was cleared, tunnels allowed defenders to reappear from another entrance. The island became a war of inches and exhaustion. By late September, after weeks of constant combat, the Marines were near collapse. Reinforcements from the U.S. Army's 81st Infantry Division arrived to relieve them, taking over operations in the Umurbrogel. But the terrain favored no one. One soldier later wrote, "You didn't conquer Peleliu. You just traded places with the dead." Rain turned the ridges into mud. Flies covered everything. Medical corpsmen worked in unbearable heat, often under fire, to treat wounds that refused to heal in the coral dust. The battle that had begun as a strategic necessity had become a nightmare. Inside his command bunker, Colonel Nakagawa continued to send radio messages to higher command in the Philippines. His reports were calm, even optimistic, a mask for the reality underground. By early October, his force of 10,000 men had been reduced to fewer than 2,000. Yet they continued to fight from the tunnels, emerging at night to harass U.S. patrols and vanish before dawn. American commanders realized there would be no surrender. Every tunnel would have to be sealed or burned out one by one. As October turned to November, the fortress began to die. The last caves were surrounded, their entrances blasted shut. Nakagawa's men, cut off and starving, sent one final message. "Our duty is done. We will die defending this island." On November 24th, the colonel burned his regimental colors and took his own life inside his bunker. Peleliu had fallen. When the smoke cleared, the cost was staggering. Of 10,900 Japanese defenders, fewer than 200 survived. The Americans suffered over 9,000 casualties, a toll that shocked even seasoned commanders. And the airfield that sparked it all? It was never used for the planned invasion of the Philippines. History would debate whether Peleliu was necessary at all. But for those who fought there, the island was proof that courage alone could not overcome the geometry of modern war. In the years after, U.S. engineers explored the tunnels Nakagawa had built. What they found was astonishing. Entire command posts carved 60 feet into solid coral. Hidden ventilation shafts that carried smoke away from gun ports. Electric wiring for radios powered by captured American batteries. Peleliu wasn't just a battlefield. It was a glimpse into the future of defensive warfare. The lessons learned there shaped Allied tactics for Okinawa and the projected invasion of Japan's home islands. Peleliu showed how dangerous a well-planned underground defense could be, and how devastating it was to attack one. Today, Peleliu is quiet again. The jungle has reclaimed the ridges, covering bunkers in vines and silence. But step close, and you can still see the scars, blast holes in the coral, rusted helmets half buried in the earth, and the dark mouths of tunnels that breathe cool air from a war long gone. Locals call some of them the Caves of Ghosts. Inside, relics remain. Mess tins, rifles, even painted kanji slogans on the walls reading, "Hold fast, fight bravely." The air smells of limestone and time. The silence feels sacred. Historians now call Peleliu a forgotten battle, overshadowed by larger campaigns like Iwo Jima and Okinawa. But for those who study strategy, it marks a shift. The moment Japan traded offense for endurance. The fortress that wasn't supposed to fall did, but not easily, and not without teaching the world that courage, preparation, and sacrifice can coexist with tragedy. Peleliu was a fortress carved from coral, defended by men who knew they could not win, but refused to surrender. They fought until the island itself crumbled beneath them. And in that quiet defiance, history found both horror and honor, sealed forever beneath the ridges of a small Pacific island called Peleliu.